Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Rebecca, a communications person here at Round Sky. If you are here to discuss collaborative meeting tools for remote work, then you're in the right place. And I always like to start with telling people a little bit about our work, especially those who don't know us. And so I'll just share 3 things with you. So one, I'll share who Round Sky is. Round Sky is a worker-owned cooperative that many people don't know that about us. We haven't been front and center with that, but we're a worker-owned cooperative. We work with all types of leaders, aspiring leaders, and organizations that value and want to improve their democratic and participatory processes. So that's who we are. That's number 1. Another thing that we do is we offer free things like this webinar and to support people in their personal and professional development and in their self-organization and their teams. So this is one thing that we've offered in the past, our self-care challenge. We've offered introductory sessions on confident and cooperative leadership, on decision-making, power, all these good things. And we'll continue to do that. And the third thing I want to share with you is about our flagship and our main initiative, which is the Cooperative Leadership Certification Program. And we'll be using this to share some of the tools because this is what we've spent so much of our time learning and really perfecting as much as you can get. So we'll be sharing those. And for a note about logistics, so this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sharing that with everyone after this. And if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box. You can do that to everybody, to all attendees, and Cecile will say hello. Thank you. So you should see a little notification that says, hi, everyone. It is probably orange. And if you have any specific questions or issues that are happening, you can message me directly by, you'll see in the chat box, there's everyone. You can push that arrow and go down to Round Sky. And that's me. So we'll take clarifying questions as we go throughout this session. We'll also have time at the end to get into those other questions. So feel free to put them in the chat box whenever, but know that we'll probably wait till the end, depending on if it's clarification or a bigger picture question. So with that, we will get to know each other a little bit. So I'd love to get to know who's on the call. We have something a little silly today. So first, I'd love to hear your name in the chat box, what brought you to this call, and in the spirit of remote collaboration, your most used or most hilarious to you conference call bingo moment. And for those who haven't seen that meme, I put it on the slide here. Lots of different things that people say on conference calls, which can be funny. So I'll start, I'll kind of mirror that, and you all can share it in the chat box as well. So my name's Rebecca, and I'm really excited to be a part of this call today because I've been on a lot of conference calls and my work with Round Sky's remote, and I think that there's something really powerful about being able to be connected across space. And with the right tools, we can make it really participatory and important. And my favorite bingo spot is the sound of someone typing, possibly with a hammer, because I imagine that's probably me in some scenarios. And I will invite Cecile to introduce herself while you all continue to do that in the chat box.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cecile Green. I'm one of the co-founders of Round Sky Solutions, and I live near Montpelier, Vermont. I've been a social entrepreneur for over 30 years and have published Collaboration That Works, a ruthlessly practical handbook for a generative world, as a training manual that summarizes the research I've done into common power dynamics at work and offers a synthesis of a dozen different collaborative methodologies into a set of practices for healthy shared power. And I shared in the chat box that my favorite bingo spot is, I think there's the lag.
Nice. That's a good one.
All right.
And Arash, I will message you directly in a moment to try to help you hear us. You may want to exit and then come back. Sometimes turning off and on helps for some reason. But if not, I'll come back to you. So, but before, oh, you probably can't hear me. So if you could type that, Cecile, that'd be great. To Arash. So before we get into these tools, I wanted to get a sense of where people are with how they're thinking about remote work. So I have a little poll, and that will help us also get to know who is on the call. So you should see on your screen a question, and that is, how ready is your team for the future of work when it comes to remote collaboration? So there are different options that may apply to you. Maybe you're already there, everything's strong and aligns. You work remotely, but it's a little bit difficult. Things get dropped and participation is challenging. Or maybe you want to start working remotely, but you're still figuring out. So that's part of why you're here. Or maybe you're not remote and you just want to know what's out there. So you have just a few more seconds to put your poll in, maybe 10 seconds. Nice. All right, so this should show us on the screen, share results. You should see it now. So most of us are working remotely. We want more tools. Some of us really want.
Rebecca, we can't see the poll on the screen.
Then I will just share it with you.
Just tell us.
Nice. Yep.
I can see the sharing results on my
Oh, okay. Some of us can see it.
Oh, good. Cool.
For those who can't, so many of us are already working remotely, but wanting some more tools to really get clear participation and nothing dropped due to lack of clarity. And the rest of us are kind of split between that you're already there, you're trying to figure out how to start working remotely, and someone has a different situation. So I'm excited to hear how those things come up. Feel free to share that in the chat box, like if there's anything specific as we go on. And thank you for participating. The next thing that I want to kind of continue creating this collective picture about what remote collaboration is for us is through this tool called a whiteboard. So you should see a virtual whiteboard on your screen. And you should be able to make a note on it. That over there. And the question that we're going to reflect on today is just what comes up for you when you think about remote collaboration. What are those pieces? And so I want to invite you all to use this whiteboard. People can see it. Was that a conference call bingo moment? Can people see my screen? If you want to participate, you'll want to go to annotate on your screen. It might be on a drop-down menu, and you can click text or draw to answer that prompt, and I'll start us here. So when I think of remote collaboration, I think of comfort, working from home. So, and then I click outside of that text box, and then you all should see that.
Nice.
If you need some tech support, feel free to ask for that. Someone says autonomy. Absolutely. That's a good one.
Nice.
Focusing on creating a relationship that's question mark. Flexibility, multi-threading, need for clarity, online work, varied base locations. Mileage class savings, absolutely. Self-directed work. Comfort and feeling secluded alone, not in the office with other people. Yes, that is absolutely part of the picture. Meeting and looking things up simultaneously, challenging for accountability, task spaces and social spaces if fully remote space. Fully remote. Mm-hmm.
Multi-threading. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Coordinating. I'll add another one here. Amanda, if you want to type in the chat box instead, I can post yours up here as well. And yes, you are supposed to be able to use, Marnie, you are supposed to be able to use your whiteboard from each of our locations. Maybe
working nonstop, not taking time for a break. That's
yeah,
one of the downsides. Yes, yes, definitely challenging.
If you, Marnie, if you want to just type in the chat box, I can post it there, or you should see an annotate button in your top screen that you click, and then it should bring up a toolbar, and then you can text. You can add text to it. If that is too many details, feel free to put it in that chat box and we'll share it. And someone starred and then put a heart on create relationships that F2F meetings naturally allow for. What's F2F?
Face-to-face.
Face-to-face, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Old school. Thank you. Great. So there are lots of things that we think about when we're thinking about remote collaboration. And I'll add Amanda's here as well. Some people using the platform well, others not using it and being out of the loop. So there is an accessibility around like being able to access the platform, even in this whiteboard here.
Yeah, exactly. And there's other challenges too. Maybe it's time to clear the board and start surfacing those. Yeah.
Yes, the challenges. Let's do that.
Yes.
So I will clear this, and we're going to now continue this conversation, and we're starting to get to the challenges, and let's use this space to think about what are the challenges of remote collaboration, what comes up here for remote collaboration. People talking over each other during meetings. That's a common one. Different time zones. Yes, that challenge. Wi-Fi connectivity, just even connecting. Easy distractions. Who else has a different tab open right now? People not feeling engaged in the meeting. Maybe there's like a lack of clarity around how to participate.
Yeah, definitely.
Misunderstandings about agreements that were made, lack of actionable items, talking in circles, frustrating and long decision-making, too much noise, lack of emotional emphasis, people not turning cameras on, endless and abundant meetings, tech issues.
And differences in tech abilities, yep.
Yeah. These are super relatable and super common. So for those who put these on here, you're not alone. That's for sure. All right. Then, thank you for participating. It's good to get a picture of what is great about remote collaboration and what are our challenges. So let's get into this a bit more. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Cecile to talk about what we're going to do here.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. That was wonderful engagement, and a great many similarities, certainly in terms of my experience and yours as well. So let's turn our attention to some of the suggestions we have for you today on how to get effective remote collaboration. And we've chosen to focus this webinar to add tools and processes for the whole team or organization to your leadership toolbox. So getting to workable collaborative, cooperative leadership, remote collaboration for our teams can be challenging. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Certainly some of it is tech related and just everything that it takes to show up from a home space and all that. And there's also this layer of challenge that has to do with how we've been trained to lead. And as a species, we're emerging out of a very long history of autocratic leadership that forms the basis for how we even think about power and what leadership is. And these ways of being really run deep. To create new ways of leading, which are more collaborative, really means we have to enter a terra incognito, or a new unfamiliar territory. And in order to create these effective patterns, these new effective participatory patterns for how we work together, we kind of need to do that together. So as I've done the research and experimentation with collaborative and participatory management and leadership, I've experienced it a bit like bushwhacking. So bushwhacking is something I enjoy doing, going out into the mountains and just sort of finding my way without a trail, and it's really satisfying and wonderful. However, what I've learned is that it's really useful to have a good map, good compass, and a means of getting across the terrain, the right gear on me to do so safely. And the analogy for me to navigating cooperative and participatory management is that we really need a practical understanding of how power flows, and that it forms a useful lens to see what's at stake as we collaborate. And it also enables us to better know where we want to go. So that's the map. And then we're able to navigate the terrain of organization through a vehicle of a clear set of communication practices. And those practices are guided by our participatory values, which are our compass. So a map of power, a way of communicating, and a compass of participatory value are all really helpful as we try to do this work, whether that's remote or in person. But remote especially drives this desire and capacity for collaboration, which is attempts are all around us. So experiments into shared power can be fraught with confusion and conflict, because everyone really has a different idea about what shared power should look like and what it should feel like. And it's really not as easy as just claiming we're collaborative. Having those collaborative values are really important, but knowing how to deliver them in a real everyday way where there's conflict over who is doing what at work and by when, it requires a tremendous amount of knowledge and skill to enable us to do so collaboratively and facilitatively and efficiently. So in our collaborative leadership program that we mentioned earlier, we begin with integrating some of these tools that we're going to introduce to you today to add to your toolbox, and they make a huge difference in our ability to remotely collaborate. So here are some of those tools, and we hope you find them useful to you as you experiment with what it really takes to share power and to do so especially across distance. All right, so our first tool is the Living Agenda, and one of the simplest, easiest places to start is with a doc that we call the Living Agenda. We use this immediately in the teams we work with and in our courses, and this is how it works. It's a simple Google Doc. It's shared with all members of a team, and it's used as a visual reference during the virtual meetings by all team members. So we're all on our video or phone call, and we're looking at this doc at the same time. This gives us a lot of ability to sort of see each other in real time on paper, which is very helpful. Also, as the name suggests, it's a repository of our meeting outcomes with one date stacked upon the next. So it's a searchable location for all of your meeting outputs. And that can be really helpful for a variety of reasons. So one of the benefits of a real-time visual reference is that we all get to see the outcomes being recorded at the same time. And this makes it much more clear that we're not moving on from one item to the next until we've recorded a clear decision or a clear next action. It also helps us to sort through the complex things that we must address in our teams. How do we decide what we're going to talk about next? Those decisions and next actions, the outputs you create can be color-coded so you can easily reference them. And the use of the simple doc can keep your conversations focused and targeted on creating those outcomes instead of the endless talk, right? It also means that one person can't just derail a conversation that's underway, because the expectation becomes that we complete one item before we move on to the next. And again, we can sort of linearly proceed through our agenda that way. Helps provide a lot of structure and clarity for these complex conversations, which are easy to get lost in, and easy for people to get lost in and not be able to participate because of the virtual interface. Also makes that even harder for those of us who tend not to step forward naturally. So we've developed a template for you to use, and we're going to be sending it out in our follow-up email. Feel free to make a copy, take it to your next meeting, play around with it, tailor it to your needs. And we also recommend that you use the template for the standard meeting practice during these meetings, which we're about to introduce. It's our second tool. And the idea is that you use the living agenda and the standard meeting practice template at the same time. And you can copy and paste the one sort of template for your meeting down to create your next meeting instance. And there you go, a nice, simple, clean tool that enables a lot of ability to collaborate together. All right, so let's take a minute and talk about the standard meeting practice, our second tool. It is the meeting flow that we've designed and included within the living agenda. And it's a synthesis of, as I mentioned before, about a dozen different collaborative methodologies for how to share power, how to communicate as a team. So it's deceptively simple on the outside, and a lot of the skill is sort of built in how the agenda is created, processed, and then what the outputs are and what happens with those. But this standard meeting practice serves a lot of needs. It builds our capacity for remote collaboration in a variety of ways. It means you can show up to any meeting really ready to facilitate, knowing your meeting will be participatory. So you know how to facilitate it, other people know how to participate in it. It's really clear, you know what's expected of you and when. It's also centered around a practice of inviting all team members to bring forward whatever's on their mind with respect to their team, from celebrations of work done well to things that need to change about our work. It also builds engagement and team confidence as everyone gets on the same page. And this can be difficult to do across space. And so this practice really helps guide your team and stay on track with what are you talking about, when are you talking about it, and how are you talking about it. And lastly, it cultivates organizational responsiveness because everyone in the organization has been empowered to see what's needed and a place to bring what they think could be better about the team. So it really enables us to democratize that way of leading and managing ourselves.
Nice. Thanks, Cecile. So I really love how simple, but also how the standard meeting practice can really break down complexity. And so I really encourage you to dive into what these are. You've seen check-ins before, but think about how this might be the same and also be different from what you're doing. And it's likely that some of it is similar, and that's good. That would resonate with you. And so one of our recent students mentioned that even the first time that they used the standard meeting practice, like this specific flow, it helped them, helped their team become energized about their work and know how they could really engage with each other. So it really creates that outline of how do you even engage. a lot of people have things that they want to offer to a team, but if you don't know how to do that, then you have to kind of push your way in, and that's not always possible for everybody, nor the best way. So your takeaway, one of them could be to start using this meeting practice, identify a meeting practice that has a similar flow that allows people to really collaboratively participate. And you can try the living agenda out. I'll be sending that after this call along with the recording and the slides. So I'll pass it back to Cecile to talk about the next tool that you can use.
Yeah, so the benefit of the living agenda is that it offers this template for your meeting practice. It standardizes how virtual meetings will be held and where the content of those meetings goes and the repository. So there's a lot of information that goes into each of the steps that we call the standard meeting practice, which you can learn more about in our trainings. But the key here is having a repeatable process for your virtual meetings that is clear, fair, and transparent and collaborative. It also really helps to streamline people's expectations for meetings, making it much easier to participate in that more generative way. So we focus on facilitator skills in our cooperative leadership program because our research and testing has shown that remote collaboration flows much more easily when there's an elected and skilled facilitator whose job it is to take us through the steps of the meeting process, and an elected scribe whose job it is to record the clear outcomes on the agenda where everyone can see them as they're being created. And as you use a facilitator as an important tool for the team, here's an interesting tip. When you elect your facilitator, keep in mind it's much better not to have the manager or lead of the team be the facilitator, and here's why. The manager or team lead already has a lot of power. So does a facilitator, and combining those two centers of power in one person often results in virtual meetings being skewed to represent one person's perspectives and desires. So this really leads to disengagement and lack of incremental improvement outside of that one person's ideas. So it's really helpful to have the lead and the facilitator be filled by two different people. The scribe role is also vital because how information is recorded and therefore remembered is also a locus of power. What we remember really informs what we end up doing, and so how we remember what's recorded is key. And having one elected scribe also means that we know whose job it is to write on the living agenda. We don't have everyone writing. We have one person, or that role is passed. And that avoids the confusion, argumentation, frustration that may come from, well, whose job is this, right? So having one person in charge of those details and giving them the power to step in, request clear outcomes for agenda items before moving on to the next is also really helpful at creating the structure for clarity and that efficiency of tackling one item at a time and creating outputs from it.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Cecile. And I think to bring it back to what people were saying about the challenges of remote collaboration in terms of people speaking over each other, lack of clarity, these people on your team can be tools to really support the flow of how you get from where you are to where you want to be at the end of the meeting. So when we elect those people into those roles, we really trust them to support us, and it's often a team effort in the teams that we work with. So your takeaway could be to not underestimate the need for an elected facilitator and scribe, and the impact that supporting their skill building, supporting them and how they can really live up to their potential can support the whole team's flow. So when that's your possible takeaway, and continuously improve and work on yourself is key to collaboration, and especially in a remote space, that is really important. So we'll go on to the next tool.
So the next, our third tool we wanted to share with you is the power of a clear, efficient, and effective collaborative decision-making process. This is something that comes up so often in our teams that we work with. We need a clear way to know when a decision is made, whether or not something needs a decision, who is responsible for which decisions. So we've added this really important tool to our certification program as well. So many issues can be solved when we know how decisions are made and it's clear to everyone and fair so that everyone can participate, and efficient. So we can make decisions together rapidly rather than have them drag on interminably. So another benefit to clear collaborative decision-making is that it distributes power to all members of a team rather than just having one person, often the manager, making all the decisions. So our model we use is called Integrative Consent, and we'll be sending out this toolkit in our follow-up email, and we hope you give this a try. This tool gives you some step-by-step directions to facilitate your team through complex, contentious decisions or simple decisions, any of the above. But succeeding under these kinds of difficult conditions really builds confidence, and that's nice to have as you're working remotely. It also enables us to help recognize and reduce bias in action by consistently and actively making room for all the voices on a team. So we're not hearing just from the same people over and over again. It builds conflict resolution capacity because we're regularly practicing synthesizing differing perspectives. So we're taking that conflict, we're actually making good use of it, we're not getting bogged down in it, and we're producing something better for the team. And knowing integrative consent will also help you decide whether or not a decision is needed on an item. Not everything we talk about really needs a decision. And we've also integrated integrative consent into the Lumio platform, for those of you familiar with that. If not, check it out. It's a great online platform for asynchronous decision making. And we'll add that to our follow-up email as well. So because these two tools, the living agenda and the integrative consent process, are really well connected, our course participants have grown their team's ability to remotely collaborate by increasing their ability to facilitate their teams through these truly democratic processes at a relatively rapid pace.
Nice. I think this is maybe one of my favorite tools that can be kind of used in so many different situations, this integrative consent. And so your takeaway could be to commit to learning any clear collaborative decision-making method and really let that process guide you. And we clearly recommend integrative consent because that's what we know best and we've seen it work over and over. But knowing what you're doing and being really intentional about your decision-making process is the most important part. The right tool will help you in different ways, and but really everyone being clear about what you're doing is important. And we just created this cooperative decision-making toolkit that you might be interested in that goes even deeper into integrative consent in these different ways about how to use it in your team, some information around who makes which decisions, which is a really big topic. So it's a good next step if you're not already in that, and I can send that link to everybody. And it's really a practice, cooperative decision-making. It's not something you just learn the tool and then you know it immediately. Your team will get into a flow of knowing how to make decisions together and knowing each step. So it can really, at first it might feel a little strange using the different language, using a different thing than you usually do, but it really can get true participation. It just takes some practice and some efforts to unlearn the ways that we've, the hierarchical ways that we've been steeped in. So that's just a little encouragement for you if you have tried this or as you get into it. And with that, I'll pass it back to Cecile to give you our fourth tool, kind of our fifth. We snuck a few more in there.
Yeah, awesome. So our fourth tool is to get connected to our bodies. And before I talk about this and how it connects to our program, I want to just give us all a moment to do that. And so I invite you, if you're comfortable, to just find your feet on the floor and close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that, and take a big breath. And feel it going all the way down the front of your body, as fully into your belly as you can. And even imagine it going into your feet. When you're ready, you can take another breath. Bring the breath all the way down to your feet this time. And on our third breath, bring your attention to your heart. Breathe in and out. So when we're talking about getting connected to our bodies, we're really speaking of building a somatic awareness and capacity that enables us to be more personally coherent and grounded when we're facilitating, when we're showing up as a leader in any space. But this ability to be more coherent ourselves, especially as we're leading a group, makes it possible for us to build more group coherence as well, which enables better outcomes for a group. And this is especially helpful actually across remote space. I hope that in that little experience that we had together, you were able to feel both something resourcing for yourself, but also our ability to do this across space. And as you're working to remotely collaborate, I think it's especially helpful to work on this component of feeling our connectedness across space. And that can be built as a practice across a team. It really helps a variety of ways. But it's grounded in this knowledge that our society really largely undervalues our bodies as a resource. And when we reverse that trend over time through practice, our facilitators notice their capacity to navigate difficult, tense, charged situations with more capacity, resulting in more effective teams and more facilitator confidence as well. And this is true both in person, but I think it's even more important remotely. That somatic capacity is really key as our capacity to build facilitation. And so we've really included it as a project in our certification program because when we tap into our bodies and the capacity that's there, we're able to be better facilitators. And we can also better sense when there's a tension in the conversation and a direction that would help the team, and sort of pull that out of it as a synthesis as facilitators, which is really helpful for everyone.
Great, thanks, Cecile. And so a takeaway that a simple thing you can take away here is to commit to begin your journey with connecting to your body, to a somatic practice, which can be as simple as just what we did right now. Anyone can really access that 30 seconds. And it can be helpful to have that, to have an accountability practice set up for you. So our course is an option, or creating a community of practice with people who are really tapping into themselves in that way is also another way to do that. And if you want to build up team coherence, we recommend integrating a simple somatic check-in at the beginning of each of your meetings. Or whenever things feel tense, you can always let's everyone take a breath. Let's take a second to kind of check in about what's going on and let this have a little bit of space. Whatever tension is happening, it can be a really simple and useful tool to take a break inside of a meeting. Especially when you feel like there's not enough time, that's probably when you should do it. So those are 5 of our takeaways, but we want to share a bigger picture, some of the other pieces of this, and we also want to hear from you in a minute about what's landing for you. So I'll pass it to Cecile to talk about some more specifics.
Yeah, so getting to a ideal state of remote effective collaboration together can be can be challenging, and it's well worth the effort. The outcome of being able to really maximize your collaboration into flows and stronger relationships and more effective outcomes is a hopeful goal. And one of the organizations, just to give you an example, we started with being constantly frustrated with each other due to agreements being unclear, expectations around even simple things like when people were working or not, and important projects falling through the cracks. So enough of this, just was severe enough to cause a few key personnel to consider leaving. And after integrating these tools, the living agenda, standard meeting practice, facilitator scribes, integrative consent, and a few others, this team really experienced a significant decrease in their tensions. Their projects were being reliably delivered, and the individual who had wanted to leave has decided to stick around. And one of the best parts of learning these tools is that you're going to be able to use these skills in any context, any team context that you're in. And it's a really core set of tools that enables us to sort of crack the collaboration code with groups of people. So, and just a quick note that these tools do integrate into platforms out there like Lumio, Slack, Asana. So these are kind of meta tools that enable us to make use of those other tools in delivery of some of these outputs that we need. So, yeah.
Great. So I want to kind of just sum this up for us. So we've designed our course to be applicable for remote collaboration as well as in person and anything in between for our community of cooperative leaders. And these are the top things that we've incorporated into it. Kind of like the most impact in a small amount of time. And so if you're curious to learn more about that, if this is the right fit for you, you can submit your application, continue the conversation with us. But these are the list of the takeaways in one screen. So the first one was to use a consistent meeting practice where everyone can participate and knows how to. Ours is a living agenda with the standard meeting practice. The next one being don't underestimate the need for an elected facilitator and scribe. We don't want the tyranny of structurelessness that happened with Occupy, right? There's a lot we learned from that, but there's a lot we can grow as well. So trust your team. And the third one is learn this collaborative decision-making method, integrative consent. You can use that toolkit that we've created that's free, and commit to a somatic practice. Commit to really trusting your own body and your own intuition in some ways. And integrating these tools can be, and really being able to facilitate them can really be important for remote collaboration. Having that kind of that healthy confidence across space can support your team in participating online and that kind of thing, and really getting a full picture of what self-organization looks like across space is important. So just to say a little bit more about our course, if that is interesting to you, it starts next month. The applications are due next month, but it's a remote learning program for leaders within organizations or teams, coaches, consultants, and other visionaries that are seeking to put the tools for remote democratic and participatory leadership and management into action. So, and at the same time, build up leadership. It's not just a tools, it kind of has two different tracks, one being leadership and management tools, and the other one being personal leadership development. So these two things are so integrated into each other. And we really focus on those first two tools that we mentioned today, that you can see the first two on the screen here, as well as we have other tools that are integrated into the course that we didn't chat about today, like our remote self-organized project management system, mapping out roles and power, and thinking about how to understand and shift power for healthy dynamics in our team. So that is super important in collaboration. And I encourage you to learn a bit more. You can come to our introductory session, which is really focused on just that, and have a conversation with me if you are interested. And so as a key part of our program and a key part of our tools is practicing outputs, clarifying outputs with our teams, like what is next, what have we agreed to do for ourselves or within a team. So we want to offer that to you. What do you want to remember about this conversation? What's your next action? So I'm going to pass it to Cecile. She's really good at kind of clarifying those as a facilitator herself and coach. So I'll pass it to you.
All right. Thanks, Rika. So we're going to take just 3 minutes or so for some solo reflective time. We've offered you a lot of thoughts today and some reasons why doing this might be helpful. And we want to give you a chance to just digest it a little. What, over the next few months, what's one action that you want to take for yourself from this call that will help you with your collaboration efforts, whether they're remote or in person, or so this could be a specific goal, a growth area, recurring issue, but just take a little time and write, journal, reflect, and then we're going to do a little sharing process afterwards. I'll let you know when our 3 minutes is up. Just another 30 seconds or so. All right, well, let's bring ourselves back to our time here together. And we'd like to just invite you to share either in the chat box what you're taking with you, or if you're interested in unmuting and offering us your thoughts live, we'd love to engage with you. So just unmute yourself
And to do that, you'll scroll your mouse over your face or your name, and there should be a blue thing that says unmute, and you can click that to unmute if you want to share verbally. Nice. We have some instructions here. One being, make sure everyone knows that they can add to the agenda and how to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Really making it collaborative. Opening a convo with my team about ways we can use some of these tools in our weekly staff meeting. Nice. Introducing what you learned and getting consent. Can we experiment with these? That's a great next step. I'll be taking away the integrative decision making and more confidence in discussing and facilitating coherence practice. Nice. Mapping decision making. These are great I appreciate that connection, that participation from you all, and we want to keep them coming. We want to offer up some space for Q&A. And one question came up in the chat was around the use of the importance of attention holders and kind of agenda building. Cecile, do you want to, we can't really dive super deeply into that in the time that we have today, but do you want to share a few things about what that is and how that's important?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I didn't read the question priorly, but the standard meeting practice agenda building really recommends that we take time to go around to every person on the team and ask what's on their mind, and those become what we call tensions in CoLab. Tensions not being negative, but just something that we'd like to see happen for our team. And that each of those are held by one person, and that person has a special role when it comes to processing each agenda item because they help us identify when it's been incrementally moved forward. So we're not checking with the whole team every time, are we done with this agenda item? We're just checking with the tension holder who had raised an item, and now we processed it and created an outcome, and if it's moved their attention incrementally forward, that's great. And every one of us has a chance to do that as we add agenda items. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And it can be helpful because only that person knows what's going to move that forward for them, which is in other meetings, we may have a bunch of agenda items that people came up with together, and then we're guessing together about what really is going to help us get to where that person wanted to be. If that whatever it was, it can be really helpful to have someone specifically that's the thing that they want attention to, and they know ultimately what's going to solve it. Maybe they don't know exactly the outcome, but they know what the root is, and that's an important wisdom for moving forward. Nice. And there's some questions about what the ops tracker is, Cecile. One is, what is it? Is it a tool in the full course? Is it a spreadsheet or some other software? Is it a bird? Is it a plane?
Yeah. So the ops tracker is paired with a practice of ops reporting. And so for the moment, I assume you're talking about the ops tracker itself, which is some kind of database it's a project management tool of some kind. We've created a Google Doc version that's a template, just really quick and dirty, works for a lot of teams, not everyone, but a project management platform like Asana could work, or there's a long list of potential tools out there that can do the simple thing of visually showing what work everyone has on their plate. And then also, most importantly, how are those work items being prioritized? Because in order for a team to stay aligned, we have to have everyone putting in the work on what's really relevant for the team. And having a visual capacity to see what's on everyone's plate, and then a regular reporting process for that really helps collaborative accountability to be much more dependable.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And just to add to that, so yes, it's a tool in the full course that we really dive into and practice together. In the cohort, they'll have their projects being their homework, and then they can replicate that in their own team. And it is a spreadsheet. The template that we have is a spreadsheet in Google Docs, like Cecile said. And like Cecile said, Asana is something that people have also used, the teams that we've worked with. And also Nimble, I think, is another place that we've used the ops tracking practice. So it's a practice of as we shift from a supervisor employee relationship where we're checking in with one person to a collaborative, self-organized relationship, we have to check in with each other. And that's much more useful when we do it together as a team, and when we can share with each other about what we've done and what we're going to do moving forward. So there's a lot of pieces that go into that, but that's part of the purpose, is to really get alignment across a team and give each other feedback about how that's going, how it is to, what they're missing, what feels great about the work they're doing. Is really a generative practice. So I think it's great. And hopefully that clears that up. And other questions, there was a question that someone had sent me in terms of just getting started. What would you suggest is the first step towards becoming a remote workplace, like slowly transitioning to that? Do you have any feedback on that, Cecile?
Yeah, so a lot of it's going to be context dependent. Some teams, have the opportunity to be in person and then spend more and more time sort of working remotely. But I would say the one thing that's going to help the team and is so easy to get started is just the standard meeting practice with the living agenda, and integrate the other parts going forward. But that's a really easy thing to start, and it will enable, if you do it with a doc like a Google Doc, then when you do move remotely, you've got that practice that you can use either in person or remotely. It enables that transition to be much more smooth.
Nice. Thanks, Cecile. And we have a question here. What is the pattern project person distinction?
Yeah, that's a really fun distinction. In a nutshell, we can see whether or not the conversation under discussion needs a new pattern to move it forward, or is it a new project that's going to help move it forward? Or is this something to do with a person's personal development program or an interpersonal sort of emotional conflict? Once we've gotten an introduction to an agenda item, we can sort into those three: pattern, project, person. And once the attention holder says, yes, a new pattern, let's say a new policy could come out of this that would move my attention forward, then we know that we're going to use integrative consent as a process to get us through creating that next pattern. So integrative consent becomes the pattern that, well, not the pattern, the process that we use to create a new shared agreement together. And in CoLab, we say that patterns are shared agreements, and we want to make those collectively. But projects are essentially one-off things. They have a defined beginning and defined end. They're distinct. And as long as we have really clear idea of who's doing what on the team, those projects can go to those people, and we don't have to make decisions on every single project. And then the person set of practices is they're unique and complex and don't fit easily on one sheet. But yeah, those are also part of what we teach.
And somebody might go to the person processes if someone on your team is maybe not showing up in the way that the team needs them to. Like, how do you give really serious feedback to people about them not showing up in the way that you need them to? Those are hard conversations that our collaborative teams need to be able to have. So that's part of that piece. For an example. Yeah. Nice. Well, we have just 1 minute left. Are there any burning questions? Covered a lot today. Great. Well, this is definitely not the end of the conversation, because this is the beginning of our Future of Work series. So you all are welcome to come to the next one. You'll get it via email, and you will also get the resources that we shared. And any questions that come up for you, please feel free to email us or bring them to the next one. That's in person is always great for getting that feedback back to you. So, and thank you for joining us. You can open your mics if you'd like to say goodbye. For now.
Thank you guys so much.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.